So the Bee Swarm Simulator test room is a very interesting place. It's a version of the game where everything is possible, and complete noobs like me can get absolutely freaking stacked and experience the game as one of the top players. The things you can do in the test room are seemingly endless, so it would be pretty understandable that I would want to play there while waiting for the main game to update. But I didn't come in there just to goof around. Nah, I came in there with a mission, and that mission was to beat a world record. Let me explain. So most of you probably know about Black Bear, usually the first NPC you interact with when you join the game, and he gives you quests ranging from novice level to pretty dang hard. However, the capabilities of the test room allow you to finish these pretty easily, and a certain YouTuber took advantage of that and made his own speedrun. Now I watched his attempts, and he was able to get down to a sub 45-minute completion of all the quests. That's ridiculous. But I thought of some big things he didn't do that were game changing, and I'll show those later. But before I started, I realized that there was a huge problem. At the time of the speedrun, the hive limit was 75 bees because of lag testing, and since then, Onnit lowered it to 50 in the test room to match the main game. And obviously because of the name of the game, bees are a huge part in progressing and collecting pollen fast, so this was definitely an issue. But I decided that if I was going to have 25 less bees, I would put the absolute best possible bees into the slots that I did have, which is what I tried to do in my first attempt. But I quickly realized that taking my sweet time selecting each and every bee would not be the most optimal strat if I was going for speed. Well into the 2-minute mark, I was still finishing getting my first 25 bees, and then I tried to use the cannon, which didn't work out because I needed 25 bee types, not just bees. So after using a couple star eggs, I finally unlocked the cannon to go to the mountaintop. And for whatever reason, I only crafted the hat and boots so I could run fast and look cool. This meant I had to kill the coconut crab to get an actual backpack, and as you can imagine, it was not very efficient. So by the time I was even ready to start the questline, it had already been 8 minutes and 23 seconds. At this point in the world record attempt, Yarikz is already on the 10th quest. But of course, those quests were really easy, and I was quick with them too. 2 minutes later, I was on the same quest, so I did that and finished the rest of the gold egg questline. It took me over 12 minutes to finish the first 2 questlines in comparison to Yarikz's 9 minutes and 48 seconds. I had my work cut out for me. And it didn't help that the quests were only going to get harder, so I had to really start focusing. Throughout these quests, I would occasionally have to go to a field that's really far from spawn, like the pineapple patch, but that's where my whirligigs came into play, so I kept them in slot 3 and used them whenever I got far. Now, one thing I failed to realize on this run was that I could have been using my star saw the entire time, which would have not only saved so many seconds of running into the field and manually collecting, but it would have made the harder quests so much easier to do. On later attempts, I did end up doing this, and that cut my time down dramatically. So fast forward to the 19-minute mark, and I had just claimed Quest of Legends, which was the final quest before the Diamond Day. After this was complete, I would only have 2 more quest lines at 20 each before the speedrun was complete. But now it was time for the real challenge to begin. For the first couple of quests in the Star Egg quest line, it was easy, but the thing I realized is that the later quests make you move around a lot more. And just about every quest I found myself using the cannon and having to travel to some field, which ate up a lot of my time. On top of that, whirligigs have a 3-minute cooldown, even in the test room, so I had to be selective about which quests were worth using it and which one I could just use the cannon for. Also, a strategy that I was using was switching my collector every time I got a specific color theme quest, which would have been an okay strategy if I didn't keep forgetting to switch it back. I was doing pretty well, however, and at the 20-minute mark, I had finished Pollen Fetcher 5, which is a big one, and it meant I only had 11 quests left in the quest line. Yep, 11 quests left. 11 quests left? Why is my glider sticking up like that? Oh. Yeah, so my Wi-Fi decided it was the best time to act up, so I ended up having to rejoin the game with my timer still running. I made a mental note to subtract the time lost by Wi-Fi, but the disconnection also meant that my momentum was gone, and that my haystacks were lost, as well as any ability boosts I had. I decided to thug it out though, because if I was gonna get this record, I needed to demonstrate perseverance. So I did just that, and my momentum was back like it never left. I flew through the rest of the quests in the Star Jelly quest line, and just like that, I was onto the Mythic Egg quest line. And boom, the first quest Black Bear decided to hit me with was 30 million from the bamboo field, which went really slowly, especially because I didn't have a sprinkler. That's right, I didn't even buy it yet, because I never took the time to stop by the Badge Bears. Nevertheless, I finished the quest after taking some time and decided to buy the sprinkler when I got a quest that was close to minimize the time taken, which was proven to be a dumb idea because grinding without a sprinkler is at least 3 times slower than grinding with one. Needless to say, I trudged through the next few quests, even trying to collect 80 million blue pollen on the stump field without a sprinkler and with the snail on the field. Yeah, it was rough, but somehow I made it through, and with 11 quests left, I went to the shop and bought my sprinkler. By this point in the challenge, however, I had already passed 45 minutes, which was the world record time, so yeah, I have a lot of time to shave off. I didn't know this though, so I thought I was on pace and continued with the next couple quests with full hustle and dedication. When I reached Mountain Mix, however, I went up to the mountain only to find this big fat mono chick taking up half the field of my bee's attention, which was important. I smacked him up, paused, and finished the rest of the quest pretty quickly. I would love to say from there it was smooth sailing, but I got a quest where I needed to collect 10 million pollen from the ant field, and yeah, I'll just show you the footage. Quest ain't called You Blew It for no reason. The run just fell apart from there, so I'll skip to the end where I had to conquer this monstrosity of a last quest, and it was terrible. It took a significant amount of time in the quest line, and it just seemed endless. However, I was using one strategy towards the end of the quest: loaded dice. Loaded dice boost 3 random fields by 300%, and if you use one while standing in a certain field, that field will have a 25% chance of being boosted. If you use another, that chance goes up to 50, another one brings it to 75, and so on. The big problem is that loaded dice don't get added to your inventory when you claim all items at the beginning of the game, so that meant I had to manually craft the dice. So shortly into the hour mark, I handcrafted 18 of them, which I proceeded to use for the rest of the challenge. So flash forward again, and it took me over 7 minutes to finish the last quest. Once I did, I immediately whirligigged and spam clicked. So my final time was 1 hour and 20 minutes. After that atrocious attempt, I realized that I needed to basically cut my time in half if I wanted a shot at that record. I calculated my splits for each questline, and comparing them to the world record ones, I realized that the main areas I needed to improve on were the final 2 questlines, as well as preparation. So for my second attempt, I had a couple new strategies that ended up proving substantial. At the beginning, I wasn't going to select specific bees, and I would just use 25 star eggs to be able to get to the mountaintop shop as quickly as possible. When I got there, I would actually make sure to buy all of the gear from the shop and not just the hat and boots. I also made sure to use the instant converter immediately so it wouldn't be like last time. I also realized that the buoyant bees and spicy bees were essentially useless in this challenge, so I omitted them from my hive cop. I also decided that rather than getting the coconut backpack, I would just start the questline immediately after getting the bees, which cut my preparation time down a lot. Once the quest would get harder, then I'd go get the more advanced gear and loaded dice. And this proved to be an amazing strat because for the first 3 questlines, I was ahead of Yarik's pace. At 13 minutes and 44 seconds, I got the diamond egg that took Yarik's almost 16 minutes. I was doing amazing, but the real test was the last 2 questlines because that's where I lost the most time. The reason for that was because Yarik's grinded 2 times as fast as me. That's right. When I was watching the world record, I noticed that he not only had the testosterone mega boost of 5 times pollen, but the beesmas honey day, which had an additional 2x pollen. That's 10 times total pollen on top of the beesmas boost and extra bees. So no wonder he got a sub 45-minute run. But despite these challenges, I still pushed my way through the Star Jelly questline, even encountering a stick bug. But that didn't deter me, and I ended up collecting the last quest of the questline at around 25 minutes. What I didn't realize was that at this exact point, I was only 15 seconds ahead of Yarik's pace, which means he was gaining on me. I needed to move fast. After doing Bamboo Boogie 2, I went to the shop to craft my loaded dice and went to work. Then came Mountain Mix, and that same Mondo chick was on the field. But something about this being the second time around ignited a fire in my bees, and they killed him way faster than last time, which didn't even matter because I ended up finishing the pollen in 15 seconds. And this time around, I made sure not to die while collecting from the ant field, so I kept my whirligig and used it to escape the challenge. During the 6th to last quest, I realized that I could use something powerful to boost me even more, a festive bee. These provide 100% instant conversion, 2 times conversion rate, 2 times bee move speed, and 1.5 times pollen. That is OP. So I popped it in the stump field and found immediate results, and it carried my late challenge pollen collection, leading me to completing the next 2 quests in 2 minutes. Then came a quest based in the coconut field, and I needed to kill the crab. And that same fire was in my bees' eyes because they absolutely demolished it, leading me to complete the quest really quickly. And then there were 2. So I did boss battles in under a minute and then got to the big drop of all the quests. And it definitely halted my progress to a stop because it took me an entire 7 minutes to complete. Despite me using all my loaded dice to decide which fields to grind on, it took forever to get 50 million pollen from all fields, as well as an extra 2 billion pollen. Every time I thought I'd finished the fields, I'd scroll down and another one would be incomplete. It felt endless. Like I was so tired of it by the time I was finishing the blue pollen. Then I saw that I had to go all the way back up to mountaintop and I was done. I even forgot to whirligig because of how stressed I was. Almost solely because of this, my final time was 53 minutes and 22 seconds. When reviewing my splits for this attempt, I noticed that I made substantial progress in everything except for the first questline, which overall led me to shave 25 minutes and 38 seconds off my original time. But it frustrated me that I did almost everything in my power to go as fast as I could, yet still lost by over 8 minutes. It seemed like whenever I would grind a field, it would take me 3 times the amount of time it would take Yarik's. I knew this would be unavoidable because I was in a huge deficit with my bees and pollen buffs, so I had to think. And I came up with this. In order to maximize my usage of the 50 hive slots, I needed to combine my first and second strategy. There are 10 event bees if you exclude puppy bee, which really has no use in this challenge, so I could use 15 star eggs and then the 10 event eggs, which would still diversify my bee types to 25 so I could use the cannon. Then, after ensuring I got star soil, I could then use the remainder of my hive slots for this comp. 8 vectors because triangulate and pollen marks are insanely necessary for this challenge. 6 precise bees because the ability can allow for some ridiculous super crate pollen. 5 tadpoles for baby love, and 2 Riley and buckle bees because red and blue boost can stack up to 10, which means 3 times the amount of red and blue pollen, which would be game changing. But the biggest thing that I did was most definitely this next one. I did not collect the auto claim badges box. What I realized is that this box collects billions of pollen from each field by claiming every Grandmaster badge, and that is extremely overpowered. So I knew I could use it only once, and if I had the final quest open, then maybe it would collect the pollen for me so I didn't have to waste time running around every field. Spoiler alert. I'll just let you see what happens. The only downside to this is that there are things that I've been using that require badges, like the Gummy Bee layer and the Badge Bears Guild, which meant that I couldn't craft any loaded dice until much later in this challenge. Fortunately, I only needed the Hotshot badge to talk to Gummy Bee and get my mask and boots, so I grinded very briefly in the Dandelion field and sprinted to get those. Oh, and I didn't have to worry about loaded dice for a while because one of the test room codes gives 30, which would be enough to keep me until I got the badges required to craft them. Now that's thinking. Another cool thing I realized I could do was utilize the meteors. Meteors collect pollen from 3 fields at a time, and they collect a lot. So by activating them and then starting the questline, this minimized travel by a lot, and this combined with my star saw ultimately allowed me to finish the first 2 questlines with 38 seconds to spare off of my last attempt. More importantly, I did them more than 90 seconds faster than Yarik's. This was an amazing start, and I intended just that. My goal was to save as much time during the first 3 questlines and then hold on for dear life for the final 2 before claiming the badges. I believe that approach would be the most effective for getting a shot at the world record. So it was time for questline 3 and I was on a roll. Quest after quest, it felt like I was doing them instantly. I got done with the final quest at 14 minutes and 30 seconds, which was still 90 seconds off Yarik's pace. But I knew that these last 2 questlines would be the ones where he would come back quickly, so I needed to hold on. By the time I was done with the Star Jelly questline, it had been 25 minutes and 45 seconds, which was only 25 seconds ahead of Yarik's pace. I was holding on, but he had gained on me during that questline. I knew if I was going to stay ahead, I needed to really lock in on the final questline, because it all came down to this. The questline started out really shaky, as it took me a whole 30 seconds to collect 30 million pollen from bamboo, and it didn't help that I wasn't using a sprinkler because I hadn't gotten to the badges yet. I absolutely didn't let that deter me, however, and I completed the next 6 quests with ease. When I got to low tier Trek, that star cell came in real clutch and allowed me to collect swift pollen. From there, it was pure speed, and at the 33-minute mark, I found out that I only needed one more badge to get into the shop, which was really good. So after finishing up the next few quests and even meeting an aphid along the way, I got to Mountain Mix, and you guessed it, it was another freaking mono chip. It died pretty quickly though, so I was able to get my pollen fast. I quit my Tide Popper for the blue quest, and after that, I was able to get in the shop, but I realized I didn't have the badges to buy any sprinklers. This was devastating to my run because sprinklers are extremely important in pollen collection, but I didn't come this far just to mope about some sprinklers. No, I was on pace to beating the world record, and sprinklers or not, I was going to try my absolute hardest. I was cutting it extremely close to the time, and I needed to make some big moves if I was going to get this record. Red Delicacy, done. Boss battles, I wish I could say this quest was done quickly, but it took a long time to get Stumpfield pollen, as it always did. Nevertheless, I finished it and claimed the dreaded last quest. I made a beeline for the badge claim, and good news, it did complete the majority of the quest, which saved me all of the running around. However, it did not complete the billion red and blue pollen or the mountaintop field pollen, so I had to do those, which took 40 seconds. So I rushed to claim it, and the moment of truth had arrived. I got a 49.43, which was still 4 minutes off the world record, but as far as I've researched, that got me a second place medal because all of Yarik's runs were slower than that time except for the world record. So I humbly hold this L, but I'm proud of myself for at least cutting my initial time in half. Almost. And I truly believe that this was the best time I could possibly put up, but come beesmas, I'm coming for you, Yarikz.